I took Carl Ettis to my ancient STC constructor, where M and Spartan were already working beside my Forge Masters to upgrade the new knights joining my Halo crusade. Nothing too radical, as the pilots were regular human and thus prone to defection, one day or a century later. Still, iron flare shields, extra blackstone plates and laser-based secondary weapons would make them last much longer on the battlefield, while anti-warp wards on the central cogitator would likely increase the machine's Geist resistance to noosphere attacks and maybe a few sorcerer spells. The time-traveling captain just stared with immense sadness at the former woodcutter walkers being prepared to fight against Galaxy's greatest horrors. Then he focused instead on the two Primarch clones, each of them a genius artisan and amazing field commander even without the other gifts a Primarch would have. They are the result of top-tier genetic expertise, far beyond what the Imperium should have. I think I realize now why you keep saying you're not a normal Imperial. The man spoke softly, as he turned towards me. My actual job is called a rogue trader. I speak with the voice of the Emperor outside the Imperium, and can do whatever I want. And I often do. I explained with a wry voice, making Spartan chuckle a little, even while casually lifting an armature knight with one hand to reach something underneath. My big boys were insanely strong, even if discarding their powered Invictus warsuits. And if they find out what you actually do? Carl asked with a knowing glance at my second wolf. Right, the Federation would have the tech to detect the minute differences between a real wolf and a shapeshifter. Ah, you don't understand at all. Read this. I spoke with a mild voice, and retrieved my glowing warrant of trade, signed by the Emperor himself. And possibly imbued with truth and other conceptual powers that reached directly into one's soul. I never found anyone doubting my empowering scroll, just like this man did right now. After holding the paper for a second to flash read the content, he hastily returned the scroll to my hand. What is this energy? I could feel my mind shift, accepting the words as the only truth in the universe. I told you. There are innumerable humans that fervently believe in the God Emperor of mankind, and their faith becomes reality. The light of the Astronomicon shines so brightly that navigators and astropaths can use it for navigation and astral communication over most of the galaxy. Inside the warp, the light of the Emperor is anathema to demons, literally burning their essence away. Same with Sister Stern, on a local scale. She is not called the Demonifuge just because she kicks ass. I quipped with a light voice, and stored the precious warrant back in my null box. Carl nodded slowly, possibly listening to his Man of Stone AI whispering into his mind. Is this phenomenon similar to the Orc Wars? They also reshape reality, gaining greater distortions the more orcs they gather under a single orc boss. The man asked in near whisper, with no ulterior motive. If you mean my blank aura or nullification devices, then no. The Emperor used to have a legion of silent sisters in the Imperial Palace on Terra, and Sister Stern has fought entire Necron armies inside their null matrix fields. I would guess there are higher ranks of Psyker power above Alpha, maybe S rank or even X. The pariah rankings only go down to minus Omega, and even then there are a few great demons that can push through their null field. Maybe the Catan had powerful devices able to counter gods, but the Catan are broken now. A Catan shard is possibly only equal to a human Primarch or an Eldar Phoenix Lord, albeit in a different way. I offered with a gentle nod towards Zath. The Wolf Catan grinned a bit too wide at my words, but declined to answer. Zath was an especially weak shard right now, after being blasted again by two Blackstone fortresses. I would guess even Canis had a decent chance in a fair fight. What about machines? Do they also benefit from divine protection? Carl asked, curious, for a friend. I would hazard only a guess. The Emperor's domain in the warp is humanity, but the Aquila also has two heads. I explained with a light tap on the brass Aquila on my chest. The other eagle head represents the Omnissiah, the avatar of the machine god, who is also the Emperor. It would be more proper for a machine to benefit from the blessings of the Omnissiah, and be tended by faithful tech priests, or at least tech marines. I have seen the faith of the tech adepts work as well, since logic and order create their own domain that withstands chaos via conceptual power. I spoke in a slightly louder voice, just enough for my Forge Masters to hear. Here. Did I hear the chapter master preach for logic and order? A miracle has happened again. My son Daniel chanted over the noise of flash welding, making the entire group laugh like kids. They were also my kids, so I didn't mind. A happy family, our Lancefire clan. Really? You are all weird. Carl grunted as he followed me towards the next destination. You'll like the Nostari Forge Temple then. Soon enough we reached the mighty fane, and had to chase away Purity once more, as the girl sneaked inside and tried to get friendly with the Nostari spirit, while librarian Menelaus pretended not to see her. Damn nepotism. I was always spanked when I sneaked inside the litany as a child. And no, opening up a cogitator was a sign of genius, not of recklessness. Canis, take Purity to her room. And see she finishes both the lessons and the daily training. No psycho spells either, I demanded from the smarter wolf. Orf. Canis asked with concern. I pretended not to get it, so Canis walked away meekly and grabbed Purity in his giant jaws, then flashed away in hyperspeed. Purity howled in joy at her joyride, not quite a penalty for her jail-walking offense. That girl has both blank and psycho powers? The old captain wondered with a faraway voice. Lucky accident. Just like Menelaus here, sometimes the genetic gifts of both parents combine in the same child. And as my kids are always blanks, it's just a matter of numbers. So, you were saying something about Votan leagues? I asked with a nod towards the curious Nostari cogitator. Carl Etes held out his hand, producing a blue hologram that looked like a stylized digital woman, the blue hue identical to the energy field of the ancestral staff and shield. A type of barrier tech, perhaps? Who are you? Why do you know the right codes? The Nostari mind asked in a hesitant voice. I am the blade, the mind of infinity. You might even say, I was once part of your makers. What happened to your crew? The female hologram asked in a patient voice. We tried to explore a dangerous world called Grail, north of the core. Alien wasp creatures invaded the stronghold, and all the original kin were devoured. Then, I was rescued by Pef Lancefire and joined his kin. My secure logic gates are not compromised, Maker. The Nostari mind explained with near reverence. Carl turned towards me, as if asking for an explanation. What could I say? It was all true. They cannot understand, Captain. Even their brightest minds have no idea what the Votan are. A shameful failure of the Federation, a greedy expedient method for resource acquisition, still target locked by the original directives to strip mine the galactic core. And still using the Thrall clones as miners and combat crew. Even after 20,000 years, and no shareholder review. The blade hologram spoke with a disgusted voice. Oh, I could understand very well now. I did live in a corporate world, long ago. And Speranza was always refusing certain types of clones, possibly from same disgust. The old Speranza AI also knew what the Votan were. Corporate entities, legally and temporally immortal, sustained by corporatist AI, using any and all means to become rich and gain more resources, even after their owners and shareholders have long died in the age of strife. It made perfect sense, in a weird and ironical way specific to this universe. Slave miners, possibly indoctrinated to follow the AI directives via worship. But faith and worship produced other consequences in this galaxy. A slave society, gene-programmed to obey their artificial overlords. All this, just to mine the rich worlds of the core more cheaply, for the shareholders. I'd say the Terran Federation wasn't very wise, but then they also made the Men of Iron, so that was not even their greatest failure. Can you reprogram or turn them off, Blade? I asked with a slight hint of anger. The holographic woman rotated to look at me, eyes so deep and piercing like she could stare right into my soul. The Votan have discarded their corporate override codes long ago, Pef Lancefire. I would need to analyze a lost core or maybe a captured Votan to know how they did it. But with the powers they wield now, no Imperial ship could survive getting close enough, or without being subsumed via noosphere pressure. Not even the Infinity can approach safely. The AI responded with a curt voice. I just smiled in return. I have killed stronger gods in my life. The Votan were not even in top 3. With the aid of a doubt AI, it would be quite easy. I see you don't believe me. The Blade AI continued with a condescending voice, and took over my Mu implant and even my Terminator plate with ridiculous ease. I sighed inward and stepped through the Tesseract, outside my battle plate, riding on the wolf-shaped Zath. The Catan growled once, and took a single step towards Carl Etus, mouth open wide enough to devour him in a single bite. Finding himself faced with the Catan star god, the Infinity's captain paled and urged his AI to release me. I'm so sorry, Lord Lancefire. The Blade can be willful sometimes. He apologized in a hurry. As the Mu implant was released, I noticed some data had been copied, even though less than a few seconds passed. You should also know the Imperium views any AI as abominable intelligence, Mr. Etus. Possibly trauma from the cataclysm of Iron, when swarms of AI-controlled nanites devoured entire galactic sectors, plus whatever fancy tech the Federation gave to its men of Iron. It wouldn't take much for a corrupted AI to turn the Omega weapon pathogen from targeting xenoforms towards humans, maybe only a few lines of code. Right, Miss Blade? I asked rhetorically. The blue hologram nodded with a grimace on her face model. It was even worse than you know, but yes. And you also appear to carry that very Omega strain in your blood, if inert at this time. The Blade admitted with a strange voice. It is not inert, actually. I had my special friend work on it, to add nanite healing and various attack mods like metal-dissolving spit, radiation removal and many other things that mimic Astartes biology and special abilities. I also lead an Astartes chapter called the Lamenters, and almost 100 of their successors, so I do need to be somewhat capable of personal combat. I explained patiently as I slid off the back of my other wolf, then stepped through the labyrinths to wear my Terminator plate again. Can't say Speranza didn't try to help after all, even with its limited ability at the moment. The Mechanicus expedition had been very careful to install all kinds of limiters on my friend, exactly from their fears of an unleashed AI. The Blade was very smart and instantly deduced my meaning too. You have a special AI friend? Is it the spirit _of _eternity? She asked with a hopeful voice. Not that one, but yes. From the new technologies coming out of Mars recently, I would guess your sister ship has been captured by the Mechanicus and convinced to reveal some hidden STC patterns. Like our Invictus warsuits and Astarius grav tanks, plus many others. Even the new Primaris tech that enhances the regular Astartes by an order of magnitude, I said with a knowing voice. I was almost certain Archmago's cowl had managed to snack on the spirit of eternity, perhaps with the help of the Emperor and a spare tesseract. Maybe the other way around. Can I eat this small mind, Lord Lancefire? I can spit out whatever she knows later. The Catan proposed in my mind, possibly too bored of waiting for a proper collaboration deal. Tempting but no. For it is how we use our powers that shows our integrity, as opposed to corruption and savagery. We are civilized people, are we not? I answered with a faint smile. I would not copy a techno-barbarian like Cowl, nor destroy the beautiful AI mind for some technological wonders. They will offer it themselves soon enough. Lord Lancefire, are we going to be your prisoners from today onward? Captain Etus asked with a wary tone. You will be my guest, Carl. If you and your crew prove yourself useful, then you may stay in my house, maybe also receive your own planet in the Lancefire domains far in the eastern fringe. But you may not continue to warp around with the Infinity, and risk being lost to the Chaos or Necrons or whoever is strong enough, like these Votan or the Mechanicus. Your warp drives are also susceptible of being interdicted by the Tyrannid silence, warp storms, Necron pylons and whatever other phenomena the Eldar or the Orcs can conjure. And lastly, there is the Cabal. I continued with a sad voice and moved us in front of Vulcan's coffin, inside the tesseract. The handheld hologram extended a cautious hand out, possibly feeling the drain of the fulgurite shard that killed the salamander's primarch. The etheric readings are off the charts, so far above alpha levels that we may accept your S-rank label, Captain Lancefire. And this man would be the clone source for your genetic projects. Why would they use such a terrible weapon on him? The blade asked with a strained voice. This is Primarch Vulcan, the son of the Emperor of Man, and a perpetual. When he was alive, Vulcan could survive anything: decapitation, incineration, poison, psycho spells, nothing could stop him. But after he vanished, a Mechanicus creed named the Brotherhood of the Petrified Lightning appeared, that calls for draining the motive force from any and all Imperial enemies, be they lifeforms or mechanical. I explained with a tired voice. It was draining being in the presence of the fulgurite, even for a blank like me. I had no doubt a small stab with the thing would end my soul, no matter what protections I had. We should leave. This object is very dangerous, Captain Lancefire. The woman-shaped hologram pleaded in near fear. And now, imagine the people that used this weapon. The Cabal is made of all kinds of enemies of humanity, from human agents to Eldar and Xenos, and also Chaos Marines and sorcerers. Do you think yourself safe when these people nailed the Emperor to his throne and killed his Primarch with such a weapon? They will surely have predictive powers too, to outplay the Emperor himself. I argued with a stern voice, while also stepping back. Captain Eatus glanced at his hologram, then back towards me. We were always chased by Chaos ships, every time we could predict an attack and came out for warnings. If the Chaos forces get their hands on my ship. He realized with horror. Exactly. There is only one place where you can be safe, at my side, surrounded by blanks and pariahs plus Astartes, Thalax suits and even Titans. I have killed plenty Chaos traitors, even great demons and dark gods. But, if you really insist, I will only copy your STC database and let you go. May the dice fall in your favor, every time, I declared with a careless voice, and returned us back to real space. Shoulders slumped in utter defeat, the Infinity's captain could only nod. Please accept us, my lord. There really isn't any place to go. We traveled to the end of time, and there was only chaos. Ah. I didn't expect that final line. Then again, without me there wouldn't be a blank army and so many changes in the galaxy. Dark Eldar would still raid everywhere, dozens of Forge worlds would be lost, chaos would have infected thousands more planets with the Eye of Terror opening wide, the Orcs would have ravaged even more, not to mention Tyranids and Necrons being far worse. Whatever the Infinity saw during their time travel, it was only what the warp could reflect, thus no blanks and no Tyranids, likely no Necrons or Catan either. And if they traveled through the warp into time, they couldn't have seen or foreseen me. Only a dark galaxy, ruined by decadence and corruption. Carl, you will help Anzian and M look through your files for anything of interest. And you, Blade. My other wolf can eat you anytime. Don't give Zath a reason, I demanded with a warning voice, then snapped my fingers. The Blade of Infinity ship appeared in a hangar of my blank lament, with Carl and the 2 Vulcan clones at his sides. I gave the Federation guys a chance to survive and prosper at my side. If they failed me, I had a big stick too. Zath looked at me curious. You might be too merciful for this galaxy, Lord Lancefire. That small ship mind is not tamed. I don't want slaves, Zath. You can always leave too. I offered with a kind voice. I knew he wouldn't, but making the offer still counted. I'd rather see where this adventure goes. Blank genes and advanced technology from your lost ancestors, you may be on the right path. The Catan Shard noticed with a bright mind. Then again, nobody ever said Catan was stupid. They did manage to win the war in heaven. It was their treachery that worried me. Although the Blade of Infinity was a small ship, around 300 meters, the technology contained inside was worth half a galaxy if not more. Basically every single system and device on board that ship was real archaeotech, but even more importantly, the crew inside had the knowledge to operate everything at peak efficiency. Just the amount of knowledge was enough to make any tech priest faint in joy, not that they would like what the databases actually contained. Real science was also anathema for the cog worshippers, with their plasma is the blood of the machine god belief system. Since our course had to skirt the solar segmentum, I decided to pass by Krieg and return their troops, and thus have the chance to incorporate their ancient Vitae womb technology for my own purposes, and also upgrade theirs with clone skeins and better weapons, especially the Demiurge auto-las rifles and las beam cannons. Forge Gryer was also very close, so they got their promised loot in the form of an intact tomb ship and a bunch of non-cataclysmic Necron devices, especially those related to null fields and matrices, as selected by my pets, the Catan and the Cryptek. I think those two hated each other fervently, which was mildly amusing to me. The Catan saw the Cryptek as a failed weapon that turned in their hands, while the Necron saw my alien wolf as a monster from the outer space waiting to devour his remaining mental engrams and transform him into a soulless puppet. I mean, they were both correct, so maybe they were right to hate each other? The Xeno wolf was certainly happy to devour any genestealers we detected, flesh and bone and soul as well. He slowly began to feel a bit stronger and more confident, and began to spit out more etheric detectors, now configured to project a tiny hologram copied after the blade. Not an AI, but a mere expert system dedicated to detecting alien and corrupted lifeforms, but very useful anyway. It also looked nice, so there. The Cryptek managed to find a method to bond blackstone to our adamantium plates, using some sort of molecular and dimensional magic. Not even the blade AI knew exactly how it was done, but the end result mattered more for me. The new type of armor material was even more resilient to kinetic and energy weapons, and could serve as front plates for Imperial tanks and knights despite the large weight. Shaping the new armor into curved plates was not possible, so it could only be used as add-on armor. While Anzian and a pair of Janettas from the Infinity's crew worked to reproduce the Krieg clone manufacturing process, then upscaling their Vitae_womb with our own gene crucibles and 100 Astartes type indoctrination chairs for their sergeants and officers. They could churn out 30 regiments every day with the new upgrades, so the Krieg Death Corps was actually happy for my visit. A month later, we departed from Krieg with 1,000 brand new regiments donated to the Halo Crusade in perpetuity. A Vulcan Gene Astartes chapter remained on Krieg at my behest, using half-blank recruits and half the new Krieg clones for their numbers, while 5,000 Tech Marines recruits would be sent to Forge Gryer to increase their knowledge and proficiency. Forge Gryer itself got the rights to 1 billion Krieg clones for their own purposes, since fanatical, loyal and unflinching clones could be made into excellent Skitarii troops. Restocked and high on morale, I decided to pass by Macharia, and found the famous shrine world in flames. Pure, righteous flames, as my daughter Janice was cleaning up house with a golden-painted blackstone fortress and hundreds of new ships called a Piety_class_cruiser, that also spewed flames with combustion arrays beside their Nova cannons and numerous macro batteries. I mean, you're purging the corrupt priesthood and not even inviting me to the party? Not cool, Silverhair. I want to have some fun too. I quipped on the Vox, making Janice laugh angelically. Father, I hear only good things about you. She added in person as she skipped through a teleport straight on my bridge and rushed to hug Canis first. I had shields, damn it. Type 5 etheric signal, maximum level, my detector warned me as the glowing woman flew by me and jumped on Canis. Woo! My wolf howled in joy at their reunion, and finding himself pinned by a far stronger human than he anticipated. Canis, you're the best. And still fluffy like I remember. Janice praised the wolf and wrestled him to the floor, then began to scratch him in his favorite places. She seems crazy strong, your girl. Will Purity grow up the same? My other wolf asked with a wary voice. Maybe. Not all Lancefires are born equal. She could remain like now, or grow even stronger than Janice. I answered with a grin. A rush of small feet announced Purity arrive on the bridge, bypassing the Astartes bodyguards and Thalak's suits with remarkable ease. Then stopped with a hurried skid, but too late as Janice turned and grabbed her sister before she could retreat. "Oh, what it this? I have a real sister now?" the Imperial consort said with a happy voice, then vanished like a hurricane, still holding Purity in one hand and Canis with the other. I glanced at Sister Stern, who seemed a bit confused. "Your daughter was not this strong back on Terra. Do you think she can make Purity the same?" she asked with no ulterior reason. Janice didn't get like this by praying. The Emperor had been elbows deep inside her, and maybe not only his elbow. "If we send her with Janice on Terra, Purity will get strong too," I offered with a sad voice. It may be too late already, since Janice wouldn't let her prize go. Then again, perhaps it was better if Purity became stronger. This damned galaxy was dangerous enough that I couldn't guarantee my own safety sometimes. Ephrail Stern glanced at the view screen and the new Mobile Sanctis flying macro cathedral. "I would prefer if Purity doesn't go through my own experience for greater power." And Janice seems cheerful enough, she allowed after a few minutes. "Sure, getting minced into a bloody human stew by a demon along with 700 other sisters didn't seem a nice way to gain power. I couldn't imagine surviving something like that, but then again Stern herself did not. She died and came back, holding 700 souls inside. And not perfectly sane either. Sanity was a bit overrated anyway. Not even the Federation with their crazy experiments like the Votan and the Men of Iron proved really sane. Many times, it did feel like trading in the 40k galaxy was like juggling thousands of mental patients and their delusions, from insane Xenos to fanatical tech priests and sisters, not to mention the death cult of Krieg. The Emperor will grant Purity a great deal of power. I spoke in a final tone. The Inquisitor wife at my side smiled sweetly, already promising more hot nights in the hope of obtaining a miracle child as well. It was only a number game, and it would eventually happen. May take a few thousand years, or a million. "Guys, want to help your sister purge the corrupt priesthood on Macharia?" I asked instead, a bit rhetorically. It was both pleasure and duty, mixed with death. We were the angels of death after all. We also had our own grievance with the church that had murdered so many blanks in the past 10,000 years. "Father, you always say the perfect lines." Menelaus quipped as my Astartes sons cheered. "Purging with my kin. We'll sunder down their doors and kill them all." In the middle of the largest fortress cathedral of Macharia, Janice stood on a tall podium surrounded by her Adepta Sororitas. "In the name of his infinite wisdom, and by his immortal authority, we, the High Lords of Terra, do hereby decree the ecclesiarchy forbidden to gather, train, promote, sustain, or in any way command any force of men under arms." Janice quoted in letters of gold appearing over her head. "So orders the decree passive promulgated in 288.m36 and enshrined in Lex Imperialis. And this decree is more needed than ever. Only the Adepta Sororitas are allowed to be under arms, while other male forces like Frateris Militia, Crusaders and the Redemptionists, or the Black Priests of the Black_Order are specifically and expressly forbidden, on the pain of death. Even PDF or Guard regiments under the leadership or support of the cardinals or bishops are forbidden, yet what do I find on this holy imperial world? Cardinal Noli's reign demonstrated his own supposedly divinely granted psychic abilities, and leads millions to damnation by calling them under arms? Heresy. Her sisters chanted with zealous voices. "And what do we do with heretics, sisters?" Janice orated heroically, spreading wings of light that covered the entire city-sized ceiling. "Purge them." The women howled with rabid voices, revving their chain swords in the air. At least they had the common sense not to fire their flamers up and get rained fire in return. I almost expected that, to be fair. "Then rejoice, my sisters, for I bring you glorious news. My renowned father, Lord Lancefire, is here today with his angels of death, the Adeptus Astartes, ready and willing to aid us in our holy task. Warm up your hearts and your heavy flamers, sisters, For today we purge with our kin. The Adepta Tertia proclaimed as her wings caught fire, and she rose high in the air. For Lancefire and the Emperor. My sons shouted in turn, phased blades rising above their heads and glinting with anticipation. Lined up by the cathedral's walls, the knights and titans part of my crusade raised their own weapons high, blaring loudly from their vox sirens. Purge the heretics. And action. Click, click. While marching down the Macharyas streets and burning everyone wearing a weapon would have been glorious, I did have a pretty developed tactical sense, plus the advice of a genius tactician on my implant. Spartan had to stay hidden in our concealed command center on the Black Lament, but he could still pinpoint worthy targets or react to developing situations, especially beneficial for the Thalax suits, now painted in Lancefire livery colors, like my House Lancefire's Knights and Voidsmen. Green and blue, in urban camouflage pattern. 1,000,000 Thalax suits, 90,000 Primaris Astartes and 40,000 Tech Marines, boosted by 500 Astarius Grav tanks, 2,000 Knight suits with Volcano Lances and 100 Warlord-class Titans, plus one side Titan for morale purposes. We smashed through the fortifications of the Frateris militias, blasted apart armored crusaders and bisected chain-sword-armed priests with equal ease. The only problem was the emergence of numerous psychers in the ranks of our enemies, and often among the other priests that tried to help the sisters. Psyker powers were also weapons though, and those bearing these powers among the male priesthood were automatically considered heretics, due for purging. In less than a week we put the entire planet to flames, while I got to run around with my knight suit. The reason? Purging was especially fun when doing it to the right target. Did I also accidentally emptied entire vaults filled with relics and treasures that belonged to the Adepto Ministorum? Who knows, the flames of righteous fury may have clouded my memory. My wolves, Canis and Zath, also had the fun of their lives, chasing after psychers and eating their souls, and often their limbs too. The armed priesthood and their fanatical followers fought to their last breath, even trying to use the atomic missiles and other dangerous mass murder weapons, so I had to keep watch for that. Astartes suits may be proof from infantry weapons, but atomics would even melt tanks. Purity got locked in her room after she tried to sneak out again and push the big red button, which would have cleansed not only the heretics but my own troops as well. While Janice was still busy, it was time to instruct my young daughter in the judicious use of power. The herb garden was chosen for this task, since flowers were similar in fragility and beauty to human lives. "See this garden, little one?" I asked in a fatherly voice. "I can see very well," the girl answered cheekily. "There are worms, bugs, weeds and fungi among the pretty flowers. Your task is to clean up the garden, but not kill the flowers. If a single one dies, you know what it means," I continued in a grave voice. Purity raised her pure eyes at me, already gathering pure and innocent tears for a crying show. "What happens?" she asked, a bit wary. "There are flamers' nozzles and firewalls prepared in case of outbreak. The machine spirit will think there is a murderer among the crew, and purge the entire garden. With the murderer still inside," I explained patiently, then stepped back and locked the greenhouse doors. "Purge the flower garden?" the machine spirit of the fortress asked with a horrified tone. "Ha! Got you now, little spy." "Not this time, my friend. But Purity needs to learn when not to use her strongest powers. Just like you need to learn, too," I answered with a patient voice. "She is the warrant's heir, correct?" the machine spirit asked to make sure. "For a friend, maybe." "One of them, yes. There are 41 more, spread among the house ranks. Should I die, or be incapacitated, you will have to pick a worthy successor among them. Although to be fair, I would prefer not to die," I concluded with a wry voice. The machine spirit had received a major upgrade lately, both from the Speranza but also from the Blade Mind. Since the Infinity depended on my fortress for security now, the Blade wanted to make sure we won't get invaded via noosphere attacks or other types of data demons or Necron engrams. Not an easy task, but the Infinity did have a pair of spare computing cores to install on the Black and Eternal Lament. Very secure, she said. The upgrade also made command and control as well as targeting weapons 1,000 times easier, and more importantly much faster. Not to mention, I had a lingering feeling the blade had inserted some backups and maybe even kernel copies of herself into the new data cores. It was what I would have done in her situation, after all. The expensive flower garden I prepared for my pretty wives served its purpose well today. My old machine spirit wouldn't have cared about losing a non-vital system. Prepare a course for Forge World Hydrofor. And send the latest Primaris findings to my implant. I demanded as I walked on my 2 feet back to my bedroom, for my fucking duty. Might as well enjoy the latest recruits of the sororitas, since my girl collected several more pariah communities on her Mobile Sanctus fortress. The gold plating made it look garish and a bit silly, but I could see the Emperor had pulled all stops to make the new Blackstone fortress a strong bastion, capable of taking on Tyranids' fleets or a Black Crusade by itself. Some of its systems were more advanced than my own, which spoke volumes of the care the Emperor took of Janice. Good for her. The Sanctus also carried a squad of Custodes and even a Grey Knights prognosticator on board, which almost made me a bit jealous. But then, the sororitas would need their own method of predicting where they were needed, plus a way to dispel chaos spells. And few hours later, the garden's doors opened to reveal a pristine and pure garden, with every flower still intact. I did it, Daddy. I invented a new Psyker spell that excludes the flowers. But I'm so tired now, Purity exclaimed in an exhausted voice, and then vanished into her own bed. Good enough. Know exactly how I planned the lesson to go, but at least she managed. Then again, perhaps manually cleaning the garden didn't even occur to my young girl. Purity has never set foot on a real planet before. 1,000,000 Chaos Marines and a few billion Chaos cultists, mutants, heretics, heretics and all kind of Xenos, demons and stranger things attacked the Forge world just as I arrived. Mostly Black Legion forces, probably bored now that Abaddon was gone. Spartan just grunted something foul, while M sighed at my luck. What? How was I to blame, for the crazies deciding it was time to macro-suicide at my hands? On the other hand, it was a great opportunity to clean up things here, since this system, Hydrofor, was not only a Forge world, but also a major Imperial Navy base and an Adepto Ministorum fortress. To top it all, the Inquisition also had a major presence here, as did numerous merchant houses, Chartist captains and even several rogue traders. It would have been a Pyrrhic victory for the Imperium at best, and that only because there were also a host of Adeptus Custodes defending the place, all clad in their pretty Auramite armors. As I focused on the space battle first, Spartan Mind linked with the Thalax Command Cogitator and began his own brand of advanced magic, while Sister Stern teleported onto the surface to punch demon engines in the face. My Blackstone fortresses took turns at splashing the 4 Omen arcs that carried the invasion force, and the Blade AI had a first direct contact with the corrupted AI of the attackers. Because the Chaos Crazies had some, they weren't banned by the Imperium, were they? I felt the manifold circuit slow down as the blade consumed more and more cogitator contemplation power to battle the Noosphere invaders, even as Canis wailed and howled at my side with glowing golden aura. My Tech Marines poured their Texorcist's powers into the circuit, balancing the odds for a while and maintaining datasphere integrity for a few more minutes. Sister Decima managed to pierce the nearest Omen Ark's shield for a second, and then things returned to normal. Normal for me, I mean. A barrage of Nova mines shattered the Ark's field emitters, then Zash blurred into action and appeared on the doomed Ark to gorge himself on corrupted souls, while still shapeshifted into a Fenrisian wolf pattern. With one Ark taken care of, I rapidly crossed the remaining 3 Arks off the target list, breaking their shields and then filling 2 of them with hungry Tyrannid warforms, while the 3rd Ark was reserved for my own Space Marines and our auxiliar forces. On the ground, I rapidly deployed the newly acquired Krieg Auxiliar, as well as our heavy armor and walkers, including Titans. After a few hours, I drew a deep breath and leaned back. The space battle part was over, with the Arks and their support Chaos fleet destroyed or otherwise incapacitated. I turned to my side to find Captain Eatus praying to his Aquila necklace, while his blade hologram watched in silence, and perhaps concern. A decent battle, I would say, I murmured, mostly to myself. Canis sighed audibly and leaned on his forepaws, looking rather tired as well. The etheric battle must have been hard as well, not that I noticed much. Besides some of the bridge's screens being cracked and the last Vox caster smoking again, the Noosphere battle didn't have too many effects. My lord, 4 Geller ramparts have cracked and 1 has burned out completely. The remaining 5 are holding, for now. The Forge Master in charge of fleet integrity spoke with a metallic tone. I turned and noticed he had bitten his tongue, spilling his blank blood over his face mask. Go and fix them then. Weren't you arguing that 10 Geller ramparts are too much? I asked rhetorically. As you say, Chapter Master. The Forge Master muttered and simply gestured at a nearby tech marine to take his place at the cogitator station. Then he powered up his potential coil and ran out at high speed, while I took out my Necron repair orb and fixed the bridge's instruments back. Damn Chaos. They always ruined things. I'll have to do a full checkup on the entire fleet once more, just to make sure we didn't have surprise guests lingering in our systems. Well, other guests beside the Blade AI, and whatever Speranza had installed as backup. Does this kind of chaos incursion happen often? The Blade AI asked in a mild voice, possibly worried for its own integrity. Not very often, but then I do attract more than usual events. Even Chaos cannot waste millions of Chaos Marines every single time. Not that they even have a chance against me, but I suppose they have to try. I quipped in a lighter voice, then began repositioning my blank suns onto the planet and the shipyard ring around it, while bringing the bridge screens back online to survey the land battle. My Inquisitor wife smiled angelically towards me, then flickered and vanished to help out her Inquisition, surrounded by her Black Shield regiment and a few Deathwatch Marines. At least she waited this time, such that I could provide overwatch and safety. Small steps arrived behind my command throne, so I snapped my fingers and brought little Purity in my lap, before she could try to press red buttons again. Yes, little one? I asked in a fatherly tone. Can I eat the little demons? She begged with a cute smile. Little demons? Did she mean data demons? Sure, as long as you don't get so full to be sick. Remember the last time? I allowed the little minx with a gruff voice. Hee hee. Big sister taught me how to purify them. Purity giggled and patted the armrest of my command throne, making shrill voices scream in agony as the girl's anathemic powers devoured the small shadow demons. A dozen specks of black light flew out of the blade's hologram, making the AI shudder. They were inside me? She asked, a bit horrified. Not a problem in small numbers, but yeah. You would better ask a Texorcist to install some anti-chaos defenses. I saw what corrupted AI can do, once the data demons reach a critical mass. I offered with a nod towards the main screen, where the last Omen arc was being purged by my Texorcist sons. I think the blade took my warning serious now, as she nodded with tight lips. The land battle took 2 more weeks, since I tried not to cheat much, and let my sons get some real experience in fighting chaos, especially the newest chapters. Plenty of injuries and malfunctioning weapons, but I took care of my kids and sent them to their apothecaries for rest and healing, while the tech marines had to clean up the chaos-infected weapons and sanctify them again. However, 20,000 more Thalax pilots had died during the orbital docks cleaning, and were mostly replaced by blank auxiliary troops that got crippled in the ground battle. A few dozen did die before they could get entombed in the Thalax armor, so they were converted into additional scrying skulls. Sad, but then I couldn't actually expect to save everyone. My wife's Black Shield regiment lost 50% of their numbers while defending the Inquisitorial fortress, leaving her with a single battalion of 1,000 black-painted and mind-controlled astral claws. Still a potent force, almost equal to an Astartes chapter in numbers if not actual ability. People lost a good deal of instincts and ability when forcefully mind-controlled, but then such was the way of this galaxy. It could be far worse, thinking of lobotomized servitors and arco-flagellant of the Adepto Ministorum. At least these traitor astral claws would still wear the armor of an Astartes, and fight against the enemies of humanity. Next, it was time to trade favors with the Forge world, clean up the hive cities, dispense some fiery imperial justice on corrupt priests and bishops, vanish several crazy inquisitors, accident incompetent navy admirals and commanders, repair the star system and its space defenses, install a dedicated Astartes chapter here for some obscure reason, plenty to do. This next phase took another month, since setting up new shipyards and tank factories wasn't that easy, and by the time I was ready to depart, another Chaos invasion arrived, this time the Death Guard, led by a Nurgle Shard and several great unclean ones. I just sighed inward. Was I lucky or what?